So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's CXI Masterclass. My name is Vlad Demsar. I'm a marketing academic at Swinburne University and co-director of the CXI Research Group, and I'm going to be your host for this session. So this session is the fourth installment of an ongoing series of free and publicly accessible online masterclasses, which we launched late last year as part of our broader portfolio of education, research, and consulting services provided by CXI Research Group. We've got lots of people joining us today, including a diverse range of industry professionals, those on client side, agency side, as well as a number of academic staff and students from this university and other universities, both domestically and internationally. So the topic for this session will be focused on computer vision AI, and our keynote speaker for the session will be Justin Williams, who I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment. The format of the session today will include a short introduction by me. I'll then hand over to Justin for his presentation, and then we'll open it up to your questions and discussion. So throughout the presentation, if you think of any questions or if you have any experiences to share, either just pop them in the chat or private message me, and I will then relay them to Justin so that he can share his thoughts. Before we kick off, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which Swinburne's Australian campuses are located in Melbourne's East and Outer East, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So before I introduce our keynote speaker for this session, I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes on CXI Research Group so that you all have a good idea of who we are and what we do. So the Customer Experience and Insights Research Group at Swinburne University was formed around 8 or 9 years ago. Our mission is to advance technology and practice in the field of customer experience, and we kind of sit at the nexus between customer insights and tech innovation. The group sort of has 5 broad areas of expertise, and that includes customer and employee experience, brand identity and health, advertising effectiveness, product and service innovation, as well as consumer and digital cultures. And our activities broadly fall into kind of 3 buckets, and within each of those buckets, we run a number of initiatives throughout the year. So the first bucket is free and publicly available content, which includes this masterclass series. The second bucket is our executive education and syndicated research programs. And then the final bucket is made up of bespoke research and insights consulting work, where we work closely with clients to help them understand, measure, and design various aspects of their CX. If you're interested in what we do, there's 3 ways that you can get involved in our activities. You can sign up for the newsletter, which contains the latest CX trends and insights, and we send this out quarterly. You can also follow our LinkedIn page. I think we've now got around 12,000 followers globally, and this is where we post regular content and updates. Or if you'd like to chat to us directly about our work, just drop us an email at any time. I'd like to now introduce you to our keynote speaker for this session, Justin Williams, who is the Chief Customer Officer at black.ai. Justin holds a Bachelor of Business double major in Accounting and Finance, a master's degree in Commerce from New South Wales AGSM, and has completed postgraduate studies with MGSM Sydney. Justin brings tech leadership experience from working with businesses and teams focused on innovation and challenging the status quo. He's held executive roles with HP and SAP, has been a CEO of a last mile e-commerce operator, and has led the launch of Shipster for Australia Post. Justin has been the retail and e-com mentor for Stone and Chalk, the Melbourne evangelist for Innovation Bay, and is an advisor to early stage tech players to help them scale. In his current role as Chief Customer Officer at black.ai, he helps retailers to understand, adopt and leverage the power of spatial AI. He's very passionate about CX and EX and the high potential of diverse teams, and he's also a practitioner of design thinking. We're very fortunate to have Justin joining us. So Justin, handing over to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Vlad. It seems like a mouthful hearing you say it all. So, yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be presenting with you today to share with you my, uh, let's call it perspective on computer vision. So let's just get straight into it. Computer vision AI it is not a recent phenomenon. This is a study of computers and the intersect with CCTV or video format streaming that has been around for a little while. But the AI is something more in the last 8 to 10 years that has evolved, and in current uh, terms, the science is actually working and it's in production in the field. So the best definition that I could find of computer vision AI, strangely enough, found it with Microsoft in one of their Azure pages. And really, it is enabling computers to identify and understand objects and people. That really is the primary purpose of it. And so, what do you need to do that? Clearly, you need CCTV cameras, of which there are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions. But in particular, you need to have IP-enabled CCTV cameras, and those IP streams are then fed into the architecture of a platform that conducts the algorithm and deep learning and analytics of that video footage. Now, that's quite a mouthful, but there's an important point to note here in terms of the architecture. There is ordinarily an appliance co-located in the store that is connected to the CCTV cameras. And that does two things. One, that appliance normally anonymizes the footage, so it masks the publicly identifiable information of individuals there. But it also helps with the extreme data load of processing. There are literally terabytes of data that are in this high definition IP footage, and to upload that via internet from store, it is prohibitive, both in terms of just the practicality of it, and it's very expensive to process. So computer vision AI, it's been around for a while. It is more mature nowadays, but there are several prerequisites to enabling a business, let's call it, to leverage the power of computer vision AI. So what can it measure? Typically, almost anything that is visible within what they call the field of view is measurable. And I've just taken a few screenshots here that show the objects that are visible and measured. And what you see around those three vehicles. So how can it help transform retail customer experiences? And that really is what CXI is all about at Swinburne University. What it's able to do clearly by constant measurement, let's call it, literally 24/7, it's able to help retailers in particular understand, sure, the customer count, and there are various tools that are used to count the customer entrance and exit these days, but customer count in detail, and then where they go to, that traffic flow. Suspicious behavior is another one that can be flagged within computer vision AI, as well as the impact of merchandising. So the layout of specials, end cap displays, or indeed retail media. There is an ability to analyze the layout performance of a store, the promotional impact, as well as check on product inventory, because we know that the customer experience is certainly impacted by the physical environment and the availability of product. It also helps retailers leverage resources in real time to optimize day of operations performance, and clearly empowers the retailer to improve the employee experience, EX, as well as clearly the CX. So the analytics are really quite broad and very, very powerful, but that's very interesting. But how can that actually be used by retail staff on the floor of a store on the day of operations? And that is one of the keys with computer vision AI. Can it empower the store teams to change in real time? And we'll talk about that in a moment. So computer vision AI, one of the most important things for it, as it is clearly covering all activity in a retail store in real time, is privacy. And the Privacy Act, the Australian legislation that mandates that organizations protect the privacy both of their employees as well as their customers. And one of the things that you clearly need to have a very, very close look at with any computer vision AI player is how does their platform treat publicly identifiable information in a safe and secure manner? So a few of the questions that I'd encourage people to ask players in the computer vision AI field is there any facial recognition software used in the detection process? Because clearly the facial recognition of an individual, that is one of the key sources of privacy of data. Secondly, is there any personally identifiable information measured, recorded, and stored? And if so, where? For example, it's not just facial recognition that is or can be used to identify an individual, but there is gait measurement as well as height and other various elements. And this is central to privacy. And lastly, is the computer vision AI platform, is it certified ISO compliant with 27001? That is the security privacy standard that is mandated by ISO, the International Standards Organization. So there's a few considerations there to look carefully into with any computer vision AI player, particularly within Australia. And I think it's worth mentioning that the Privacy Act is subject to a number of enhancements that have been tabled in Parliament. I understand this took place as recently as August or September, and those enhancements to the legislation are being considered by Parliament at the moment, and it will only become more rigorous, as it should, to protect the safety and the identity and privacy of individuals. Okay, once we've got the privacy addressed and you're confident that the platform that you're considering using handles that safely and in a compliant manner, I thought it might be worth addressing a number of the common use cases that are serviced within the retail environment. And what I've done here is I've captured the common use cases along the top on the x-axis, but on the y-axis, there is a range of capabilities within computer vision AI platforms, and I've just put it into three basic categories, or three simple categories, I should say, that cover those off. So let's pick off the first of these, counting and measuring. And it is the most common and the most frequently used of the computer vision AI platforms. So customer count is a very frequent one, and that is clearly something that is quite simple and quite easy for most platforms to do. And then in the specialized platform category, I'll call it, and these we see around the new self-service checkout points of sale. These specialized AI computer vision players, they too are required to measure the number of customers through. But for example, they have a look at the number of people processing that transaction at that time. So there is only one person who can pay for a transaction, but are there a number of people that are part of that group that complete that purchase? And then in the more complex, it could be, for example, where did those people come from within the store, and where are they going to after that checkout experience? So customer counting and measurement, that's a staple of computer vision AI and something that is quite mature. In the second category there, occupational health and safety, that is clearly quite a significant burden for retailers at the moment, particularly where, for example, an accident occurs within the retailer's property, and that accident may have been contributed by just the circumstance of the floor layout and product. If there was a product, either a spill or product on the floor that was not easily visible, if that contributed to a slip, the claims for these types of events are significant in their individual cases for retailers. And it's quite a sophisticated scenario that you would need to have measured to determine was that indeed the cause of the slip or fall? Was it product related? Was it fluid related? Was it just the floor cleanliness or recently cleaned, etc.? So that falls into the complex bucket for me. It is a high profile issue that is raised quite frequently by retailers. However, uh, the complexity of the measurement to determine what actually is the case with that circumstance, that for me is subject to a problematic set of contributing factors. Moving on to something that's more the core of Swinburne CXI, the customer experience. Uh, for me, this is the power of the computer vision AI platform to not just count the customers as they come through the door, but to also observe them safely, anonymously, going about their experience in this retail environment. And that is actually where the term spatial AI has come from. Spatial AI refers to how people experience environments in a physical place. And for this, the specialist computer vision AI players, they have typically a very narrow view, and mostly that is over the self-service checkout itself, and there is limited view of other experiences within the store. But in the more complex scenario, where, for example, they start the platform recording of the customer journey from where they enter the store, and then they follow that customer journey around the store. That is a more complex scenario, but that offers deep and rich insight into that shopper experience, both in terms of their response to media within the store, as well as the layout of the store, also their interaction with the product or in a particular product zone, and seeing how they behave there, and ultimately then how they exit the store. Is it via a supported checkout process, or is it a self-service process? So that there is a lot of information in that entire customer journey that is available from computer vision AI platforms. Then, in terms of the employee experience, the employee experience, this is a little bit more difficult than just the customer experience, because customer experience measures everyone who comes through the doors of that particular retailer. In the employee experience, the challenge is recognizing individual employees. If they are dressed in a non-uniform, and they present as anybody who would walk through the door, that is almost impossible to identify who they are. And if they have a uniform for that store, well, that's good. That makes them easier to identify. But the platform needs to be trained to recognize that uniform and separate that uniform from everybody else who is in the store. And so that's why I've got the employee experience in the more complex category, because it is more challenging to measure just the employees or the team members within that store environment. And then, as you set the field of measurement for that, for what purpose is it? And clearly, it is to empower those staff, to have them go about their work safely, to be productive, and to be as comfortable and safe as they can be. Then, on the far right side, store productivity. And that is a big bucket. Okay, that covers a lot of things, all the way from what I call probable theft behavior. And I'll just emphasize the use of the word probable, because computer vision AI cannot confirm that someone is stealing something. What it can do is record suspicious behavior, and it can record somebody quite possibly picking up a product, but it's not theft until they cross the threshold past checkout and they leave the physical store environment. And so I just want to be really careful when talking about, shrink, that phenomenon in retail, and being able to positively impact that. The computer vision AI platforms, they most often will be able to detect what the retailer would define as suspicious behavior. But in terms of theft, when somebody leaves the store, it's quite rare for a retailer to have externally facing video footage. And so you seeing someone cross that threshold into the neutral zone, which is the outside the store, that's not very frequent. The other piece around productivity, however, is things like, for example, the number of people per transaction per day per store. And so I said before, in the specialized category at checkout, that platform might possibly count the number of people in that party associated with that transaction. But if you are counting the number of moving customers through the store at time of day, and you are then checking how many retail transactions you had through your POS, and you're reconciling the store count, this gets to that magical conversion number. And this is what is really powerful with computer vision AI. It can tell you the number of people entering the store, the routes they took through that store, and ultimately, when married up with that POS data, that tells you the magic conversion number. And that is how many of those that entered the store actually transacted. And did they transact for themselves, or did they transact for a party of shoppers within their group? And at the moment, point of sale, as we know, that only records the one transaction. They don't have the number of people who assign to a transaction. And so that gets closer to the productivity score. In addition to this, there is the individual foot traffic through product zones and the ability to measure the interaction with product and then compare that to the actual POS data. So it can give retail store providers or retailers themselves, as well as their suppliers, insight not only into the traffic that is going past and responding to that end cap display or that advertisement, then the behavior within the product zone itself as a percentage of that point of sale transaction for the day. So it gives terrific insight into that conversion funnel, we call it. So there's a few of the common use cases that are available through the use of computer vision AI to retailers. And I'm sure there are more. For example, there are a number of AI players who are indeed able to measure the product on shelf and signify when that product is getting low. There are a number of players that specialize in just the measurement of human behavior in the space. And black AI is one of those, for example. So there are a combination of these technologies that can produce interesting results for retailers. So just onto the summary or wrap up of this, in computer vision AI, there is clearly a number of quite profound benefits from using this technology safely for retailers. Precise measurement is something that it does constantly. So whereas, there may be researchers, there may be people counters, there may be lasers or beacons used by a retailer at the moment, they can get much more rich, much more detailed measurement through computer vision AI, and it's constant. They can measure patterns of behavior by time of day and day of week, and this is literally 24/7, eyes on, everywhere in the store. And that's one of the problems that computer vision AI solves really well, is the fact that the constant monitoring of what happens in the store, whether it's inventory or whether it's customer experience or both, that served up to the store team through the right pathway, that can provide real value to them, because it's almost impossible for the store teams to be seeing everything all the time. It's data driven. There is no urban myth. There is no perception with this. It is literally just what use case has been defined by the retailer. The computer vision AI platform should be able to quite reliably measure that and produce real-time data for that. And lastly, out of that data, some computer vision AI platforms do have a notification mechanism, and that notification mechanism that can empower the teams to respond to that particular use case measure that has been predefined by the retailer. So there's a number of benefits to the use of computer vision AI by retailers. And it's really exciting because, sure, the cameras have been there for decades and decades, but has the camera feed been subject to real-time analytics and subject to rules that have been defined by a retailer that are really important to them, really important to their staff, really important to their customers, and to be able to respond to those measures in real time. That is something that I find particularly exciting about computer vision AI. In the same breath that it is very powerful, it is quite new, there are a number of risks to this platform, to this technology. It can be quite expensive, both in the time to value, and that is in training the machine learning models to uh, analyze the data that is coming through those cameras and to train it to be accurate. Not all machine learning models operate out of the box, and some of these need to be trained, and it depends on the quantity of data that is required to get that model trained accurately. The infrastructure, as I said earlier, the appliance in a store, these can be quite expensive, and that explains why NVIDIA's share price is doing so well. Quite often, these appliances contain a graphics processor unit or several of those to process that real-time video stream feed. That video stream feed can be 10 to 30 frames per second, and the metadata from those frames is what's processed by that appliance in store. So it is quite expensive, and it can be quite a period of time before an accurately trained model can deliver the results a retailer needs. Secondly, it's worth saying that the cameras have been around for decades and decades, but the AI platforms themselves for analyzing this, they are a reasonably recent phenomenon. And when I say that, I would say they're about 10 years old. So that, for me, puts the providers of AI platforms, computer vision AI, in the reasonably embryonic phase. There are a number of them that have launched in the last 12 or 24 months, and even here in Australia, there are a couple that originate from Australia, and their experience is different. That's all that I can say. So it is fairly embryonic tech. In addition to this, as everybody would know, every store is different. The layout is different, placement of the cameras is different. The field of view may well be variable between those cameras. And so it is that each store environment is quite unique. And for the computer vision AI to operate effectively, each store needs its own individual deployment model. And that can add time, that can add cost. It depends on the value of the use case a retailer is hoping to solve for. The accuracy, the fourth item here, accuracy. People think computer vision, AI, machine learning, it's all data, so therefore the answer must be correct. However, you've not taken into account things like occlusions, things like uh, data swapping. There are obviously within the machine learning models, there are limitations to those. And so it is important for people to understand that the accuracy of a platform is dependent upon the feasibility of measurement of the use case elements themselves. And I think it's quite often I've heard people say, wow, AI, yes, it works, it must work, therefore what it tells me is true and real. Whereas in actual fact, the level of complexity that is being seen literally by the models and recorded is phenomenal. And within that, an error rate does occur. So that accuracy is relative, and that is something worth exploring. Moving on from that, another risk that I've seen with a couple of retailers is the utility of the analytics and the insights versus the employee experience. As everybody knows, there is a constant tension or balance between the number of retailer staff versus customers. Scheduling those to be there at the right time, to have the right skills, is a task in itself. But if there was more insight, more analytics that could potentially overload this employee experience, we just need to be careful to manage what I call employee experience fatigue or overload, and just be very judicious about um, the workload that an employee or team member has, and how you would empower them with this additional information. Moving on, given the relative life stage of this technology industry, there are limited skills, I would say. So knowledge is not as widespread as it is for some other technical fields. But like for example, payments, you might say, or like for example, web tech or mobile phone applications, computer vision AI still has a way to go to getting that kind of penetration. And so there is limited knowledge on the part of the retailers. And so part of our job in the market is to educate the market. But in addition to that, the skills, not just of the computer vision AI player, but within the retailer, their business itself, having the skills to properly leverage the power of this platform, that is important to have those there as well. And the last risk, the biggest risk, that for me is the most important, the perception of privacy. And I say perception because the Privacy Act itself is well publicized. I think the level of public awareness of that in recent years has increased significantly. And yet the perception of privacy is important, because a platform can be safe. However, if the perception of that platform is different, that can impact the take up of it. It can impact concerns to the retailer's business and brand. It for me is a very complex area that we need to step into and be very clear about. So I hope that you've been busy firing in some questions to Vlad in this session. It's been my pleasure to walk you through reasonably quickly the highlight of my view of computer vision AI and the power that it offers retailers. It is very significant, yet it is a fairly embryonic field. And so I would encourage people to do their research on it. It is very, very exciting. And for me, the customer experience in store only stands to be improved by retailers responsibly leveraging this technology. So, Vlad, thank you so much for giving me the floor for that. I'm open to questions.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, thank you again. That was a really amazing presentation, and great to sort of get an understanding of what computer vision AI can do and how it can be used safely, and some of the benefits for retailers. And for me, one of the things that really stands out here is the ability to sort of have the quantitative level of tracking that we can have in digital environments applied to a real world retail store, and kind of do things in a much more scientific and robust way with the help of computer vision. So just wanted to open up the floor to questions and discussion. So we've got around 15 minutes or so. So fire as many questions as you would like at Justin. I've had a couple of private messages come through with questions, so I'll just open up those. Just bear with me here. So just got a question here from Jason Pallant. So on the last point of privacy concerns, I'd love to know your thoughts of where consumers are on the journey with this tech. Are they ready for broad scale use? Or if not, how can we help them get there?
Yeah, look, thanks, Dr. Jason Pallant. It's an excellent question. For me, the levels of awareness are variable, right? And as I've seen in recent years, there is a healthy degree of skepticism and concern about misuse of privacy information. So I think the consumers, their sensitivity is heightened, their awareness is good, but are they aware of computer vision and how it is made safe by retailers? I think as I've visited a number of retailer stores of late, before you enter that store, if you see a sign outside the store, importantly, so it's before you enter, notifying you that they are using their camera technology for safety, for store productivity, or otherwise. If you have seen one of those and you remember seeing that, you're doing really well. To then understand what that retailer is measuring by posting up that notice, again, you would be doing extraordinarily well. So I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's incumbent upon the retailers and the computer vision AI industry to make sure that A, the safety is there with the use of the tech, that it does comply with privacy standards, privacy legislation, and that it is being used responsibly by the retailer for the customer's benefit as well as their team's benefits.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's always interesting how consumer privacies can be quite paradoxical in some ways. Consumers, if technologies like this are highlighted to consumers by news media and so on, it's always much more of a high priority than, if they just see a sign walking into the store. It tends to be a bit of an afterthought. So really interesting to see how things are going to play out in this space. I've got a question here from Vahid Del Shab. So Vahid says, great session. Any ideas on how retailers can handle privacy concerns from customers who do not agree with their behavior being recorded through computer vision? What might happen if there's not sufficient information provided to customers about this in store?
Yeah, Vahid, very good question. And that is the dissenting customer. Um, I would suggest that the retailer is required by privacy legislation to provide notice to their customers before entering the store, that they are recorded, and then whether the person agrees or disagrees to that, but if they do enter the store, they are informed, or they've at least had reasonable notification that that is occurring. That is then the individual customer's choice as to whether they proceed or not. And again, for the individual to raise that concern with the retailer, um, that's between the retailer and that individual. So I think it is, again, quite topical, but ultimately the legislation is clear that the retailer must provide good notice before entering the store, and it is then for the individual to agree or disagree with that, enter the store, or choose not to.
You think, Justin, there's some benefit in sort of leveraging the benefits of this technology to highlight how consumers could benefit from it? So from having better stock, availability through to cleaner and more, optimization in terms of store staffing and so on. Is there an opportunity for retailers there?
Yeah, I think so, Vlad. Both in the same breath of being actively compliant with the Privacy Act, think as well there is benefit to highlighting, what's in it for the customers, right? What's in it for the employees. So as long as this is being used safely and it is compliant with all the legislation, the upside for the customer experience is significant, as you've said, both in terms of layout of store, availability of product, even availability of staffing to assist customers. At the end of the day, these are customer focused businesses, and the employees and teams are customer focused. And so there is an inherent benefit to having greater in-store capability to better improve that customer experience. And so I think it's, um, in the same breath as saying, yes, here is the notice, and yes, we are Privacy Act compliant. and here is what's in it for you, and here's what's in it for teams. It's significant.
Yeah, great. I've got a question that's been sent to me through private chat here, which is the insights sound really novel and useful. How can they be actioned, and what is the differential impact of changes measured?
Yeah, thanks, Vlad. I mean, this is now getting into the sphere of like digital twins, for example, and some of your viewers or guests today might well be familiar with that digital twins tech, which is modeling in virtual reality the customer experience and running in parallel the comparison of what happens in real life and what would happen if it was modeled differently. Would it achieve a better outcome? Would there be a better net promoter score? Would there be a higher engagement score by employees and so on? So this technology is fantastic for measurement, as I've said today, and to compare one store or even one end cap display or one product zone with another store performance and changing one or two of the variables slightly and measuring that what I call pre-pos performance. So we all know that you can measure sales by time of day, value, etc. That's well understood. But everything before the checkout, understanding how that happens on a comparative basis between stores, and it might well be a cohort of stores. So we might have five of a particular format and type compared with a similar five, and literally it's A/B testing. That's where I'm going with this. It enables extreme measurement of that in that pre-pos phase, which is vital to determining what the result at checkout is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Justin, one of my favorite movies is Minority Report, and I keep thinking about that scene where sort of Tom Cruise is walking through and all the different signage is talking to him and suggesting different products to buy and so on. And when I saw your presentation here, it got me sort of thinking of how far are we from the point where we can segment people in real time based on the footage that's being gathered and kind of tailor and personalize experiences in store as they walk through.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen Minority Report, Vlad, but I must be honest, that does bring back some memories for me. So again, I'll come back to the privacy piece and anonymization. For example, the black AI platform, it does not measure ethnicity, it does not measure age. It just is literally counts people, even children as part of a family, but they are not counted as children. They just are a small person. So that's how that's handled in Black AI's platform. And I think the Privacy Act has a really important role to play here, right? So that it does not risk us getting to that big brother type scenario, and it ensures privacy and the safety of individuals, but at the same time, with that application of the legislation by a retailer or business, that improves the customer experience and it improves the employee experience. I think um, that is where the intersect of computer vision AI and the Privacy Act will produce sensational results. So, for example, we are talking to a number of retail media enabled retailers at the moment, and they are interested in knowing who is in front of that advertisement at the time that it is played. And indeed, if a person sees an advertisement of a particular type, are they influenced or do they respond to that message when they're in the product zone? And so it's just understanding that customer behavior. I don't think I'd be very surprised, even on an opt-in basis, if anyone would be, willing to give up their private information for the benefit of some product offer or experience. I think that would be the minority. I think more the majority, if they understand this tech is being used safely and in a compliant manner for their benefit, and for the employees' benefits, I think by and large people are quite comfortable with that because we're in a technology enabled world, right? Ecom is omnipresent and everywhere, and this tech is slowly making its way into the physical environment.
Yeah, so probably more of a behavioral customer journey mapping kind of tailored experience rather than a demographic segmentation or any kind of other personal data. Yep, understood. I've got one more question here for you, and that is a pretty broad sort of question. It's how do you see AI transforming the retail customer experience over the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, that's a big question to close on. Um, for me, when I hear AI, and I think the most of public awareness nowadays is in generative AI, and that is very different to machine learning, deep learning AI. I think those two things are a little bit confusing because they both carry the AI label. But let me try and answer that question. I think without question, generative and machine learning AI already operate in the retail environment. It's just how much and how well. And I think we're at the early days of the journey. So for anyone that's used generative AI to you know give them a figure or a graph or write an essay or even write an entire book, I'm told that's possible. Um, it's imperfect. Okay, so it can give you a fast start to something, but it's not perfect yet, I would say. But so too machine learning AI, as I mentioned during my presentation, it's statistical and it's based on what it is measuring and positively validating that and acknowledging the limitations of the measurement. And yet it does a really good job, or better than not being not being subject to analysis at all. And so the results are quite compelling. Let's say, for example, in the case of computer vision AI, if there was data that gave a retailer confirmation of a use case being positively validated 1 in 2 or 2 in 3 times, the retailer quite often says, yes, that would be very helpful. Of course, 100% that would be panacea, that would be the answer. But even the 1 in 2 of false positives, let's call it, that there is still utility in that knowledge and insight for a retailer. So I think if I come back to the question in 10 years' time, where will it be? The accuracy and the experience will be well advanced on where it is today. And I think the awareness and indeed the compliance with the Privacy Act legislation, that will be even better and it will be more rigorous in its application. So I think for me, the retail sector broadly is at a really exciting phase of this journey. And in the next 10 years, the in-store experience, both for customers as well as for team members, will be vastly different to how it is today, and things will be much more subtle. Uh, Friction will be materially reduced. I will just say that. Thanks, Vlad.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. All right. I can't see any more questions coming through at the moment, so perhaps we might just wrap it up there. Let me just flick over to this final slide. So that wraps us up for the fourth installment of our CXI Masterclass series. We'll be announcing our next Masterclass date and topic in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. I'd like to say thank you again to you, Justin, and your team and everyone at black.ai for putting together the amazing keynote presentation for this session. Thanks to all our guests for joining us as well. Hopefully, we've managed to kind of inspire you with some fresh ideas related to retail customer experience, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next CXI Masterclass. Bye for now.